Hello folks, how's it going today? This video here is for all you Hofner violin beetle bass lovers. Today we're going to cover this bass here I bought about, I guess it's about 15 years ago. And it's a Hofner Icon bass, which was made in China at the time. And this particular bass is one of the older ones, and now they make them in Indonesia. And I guess the rumor goes one of the managers there decided to open up his own company. So, anyways, I did have a look at the Hofner. They call it the Icon, but it's actually called the Ignition bass. And really, the body is a little bit bigger, a little bit wider here. And it's not as small, and it sounds pretty good. I found it sounded good, but it was just a little bit too big for me. It was like kind of like a Epiphone violin bass, or a Rogue or something like that. Just a little bit bigger, but they do sound good. But if you're really going for the closer one to the German one. This particular model here is modeled after the 63 model, and on the 63 models there's no binding on the neck here, you see, and these basses here were a true hollow body. Later on they made this contemporary bass here, which is, talk about that in a bit, but it has a block inside right about here, so it's designed for, not feeding back and different kinds of music, where this one is actually hollow, just like the true German violin basses from, Hofner. And this bass here, the headstock here is quite small, and I got a buddy of mine to put this white trim around here just to have my own version of the bass, so it's kind of a one of a kind. And then this bass had a Hofner logo that was silver, and that just, that doesn't really matter to some people, but it's kind of low budget and looks better than gold. So I got a sticker off, the internet, and they sent it to me, and I put it over top of the silver logo, and you can see it just works. It works great. And one of the first things I did was I restrung this bass. It came with the worst round wound strings you could ever have, just absolute garbage. So I got these labella beetle strings, and if you don't get the proper string, the string won't fit into the slot hole because they're really small. So that's just not going to happen. So yeah, I got the labella, beetle strings, short scale strings, and they sound fabulous. It just sounds great. And if you look at the back of this bass, they don't have the most expensive tuners, but I've had this bass for 15 years, and the bass stays in tune. And this neck here is so small. I've actually played real German Hofners, and I'm not really a big fan of their necks. They're a bit thick and cumbersome, for me anyways. The neck heel here is a little bit different. It's what they used at the period of the neck to the body. Right here is kind of a cool thing I got here while I got the bass turned upside down. We did a show years ago called the Zoomer Show, and Leona Boyd was on it, and she signed this, so it's here. So got a nice flame going on back here, as you can see. One thing I didn't like about the Ignition was I found that the finishes were a bit kind of, they weren't very authentic looking. They looked kind of the wrong color. But this is kind of tobacco-ish, with a bit of, little bit of reddish brown. It's beautiful. And these pickups that they have on these basses are, they're quiet. They're Wilkinson pickups. They're not Hofner pickups, but they're really good. I find them, they work great for me. I've never wanted to change them out or anything like that. Um, this control plate here, oops. This control plate here is correct. It's nice and skinny. You know, on some of the later or, you know, mid or later models of the 60s, they made the control plate a lot wider, and I didn't really care for that too much. Anyways, this bass came for about $369 Canadian, and I live in Canada. And I had to buy these teacup knobs because they come with these really black, terrible looking, you know, knobs that they're not very nice. I had to buy a case for it. Bought a hard shell case that was about 75 bucks. So I'm into this bass for probably a little over 400 bucks. This particular bass has been through many, many, many rehearsals and many, many performances, and I don't use it in the first set anymore. As you can see, I use this bass over here just because it has a more of the right look I want. That's why I use this one. But this one, I think this one sounds better and plays better, and the action on this is just amazing. It's a lot less expensive bass, but that doesn't mean it sounds better, does it? So I recommend that if you can find an early Icon bass, get one, because, you know, for $369, what can you buy out there that's, you know, especially a Beetle bass? And when I first got the bass, it had this little truss rod cover here that had this, you know, this writing on it, and I didn't really care for it too much. So I'll give you one of my secrets. How to get rid of it? Well, you just take a little bit of you know, turtle wax, and you take a cloth and you just keep rubbing on that, and it'll just take it off, and then you get this black plate that looks closer to how the bass should look. This particular bass does not have a 0 fret, and to me it really doesn't matter. And you know, so there's a few things about the Icon that aren't exact. I took off the pick guard many moons ago so I could use this bass in the third set, where McCartney put a sticker that said Bassman on there, and so that's why I use this bass, and it just sounds great. And if you want these control flick switches here, the bass came with black. They were black, so I took white nail polish. Yes, white nail polish, and I painted these. So you can see it looks pretty good. So I did everything I could possibly do to make this bass look like a German one. So it comes with a stock you know, tailpiece here, which is, you know, pretty good. You know, the pickups, these kind of look like the Hofners in 65 to 68 period. So you know, they don't look too bad. But this bass here, I love this bass. This bass has never failed me, and you know, we could get German ones, but you know, when you're playing an outdoor event and it's so hot and the sun is shining on these guitars, which isn't probably good for them, and you never know if somebody's going to come by and kidnap your guitar. You know, they're just going to grab it and away they're gone when you're in your change room or something like that. So I would never like to see this bass get stolen, because I love this bass, because I've had a lot of hours on it, and sentimental to me, and it's a great bass. I mean, for $369, I mean, you just can't beat that. So if you want to hear it, I'll play a little bit for you. You know, got this just played through my Jens pens here, and here's how it sounds. Ooh, it's out of tune. But it is a great sounding bass. There's absolutely no, you know, hissing or humming from this bass or anything like that. Unfortunately, you know, with this guitar being out of commission right now, we're not playing any gigs. It's out of tune, so I really apologize about that. So I guess that's enough on the Icon Chinese-made Hofner bass. So let's have a look at it. Here's how the front looks, and here's how the back looks. This bass is super light. You know, you can't slap these basses and bash them around. I mean, these tuners won't take it. And but I still treat this bass as if it was an expensive bass because I love all my basses. So I think we're going to switch over to the contemporary now. So just give me a second here. So I bought this bass with some of the money I made using that bass. I didn't really have to do that. But you know, when you're playing any British Invasion band or Beatles tribute band that I play in, and you know, the one I play in, we're called All You Need Is Love. We're from Canada, and you know, you get wrapped up into it. You know how it is, fellas. And I decided to get one that looked more like McCartney's, and well, we can start from the top here. So with this bass, I didn't have to change the logo because it's already gold. I prefer these Hofner logos that are actually, you know, stenciled into the paint, where some of them had raised logos and they just fell off, and they're just, I didn't think they were that great. These machine heads here, the other ones were kind of really cheap and they were white. These ones more like pearl, and you know, they're square, they're a little bit bigger. They look more like the real thing. This plate here also had the writing on it. As you can see, I did the same thing. I took that off because I didn't care for it. We have a 0 degrees fret here, which is what they have on the German Hofners. And I also strung this with exactly the same strings on this, which is La Bella short string Beatles strings. They even call it that. This particular guitar neck here, as you can see, it is bound, okay? And the back of it, I'm sure some Hofners had it, but it has a stripe running down here. And the nice thing that the contemporary basses of these Hofners, they like to say that these are, you know, they're designed in West Germany, which is, you know, that's great because, you know, they're going to follow what the ones they make there are. So you can see the back's got a beautiful flame here, and it matches beautifully. This guitar, it cost me a little bit more. I think this guitar was about 1,000 or so Canadian, and you know, to be honest with you guys, it just played like a dog. So I had to get some work done on it, and this contemporary is loaded with these, you know, authentic German Hofner pickups, and even the rings and everything is, you know, correct. On this Icon bass here, the pick guard here was, you know, it was whiter, and it had a screw here where it attached the brackets, and that's how you could tell it wasn't a real Hofner. And the mounting for the pick guard was a little bit different, and as you can see, this tailpiece here is a lot different than that one because it's more square here, where that one's a little bit rounded. You know, that doesn't really matter, but this bass had a lot of you know, attention put on it, so it would look like a German Hofner, you know, made one in West Germany. And you know, the control plate is skinny like that one, and I had to get the teacup knobs again, you know, and I painted the switches because they were black as well. But this bass fools a lot of people because, you know, it really does look like a real German-made Hofner, which it kind of really is. But this particular neck here, when you play it and you play that one, even though it's the same kind of bass, this one's a bit chunkier. It's got a wider neck. It's got binding. It's completely different, which is, you know, amazing. It weighs a little bit heavier, not that much, but I'll play it to you. I mean, it has a It has a center block here, which you can't see, but they designed the space so I guess you could play more than just British Invasion and Beatles and things like that, which is fine. Um, but if you really want the true sound of a hollow body, there it is. I mean, that was 369, and this was like a lot more. But it's a great sounding bass, and we'll play a little bit for you now, right? It sounds good. You see, there's no hissing or humming with these basses as well. Contemporaries, well, things are going up all the time. You can get these. I've seen them on eBay for $7.99 right up to $1,400, depending what you want to pay for them. I also had to pay a case for this as well. But it saves you a lot more money than buying a real German one if you don't really want to gig it. These are great to gig. I look after this, but if you look at the bass, there's little dings in here from just gigging it. I mean, it happens, right? But people, they just love the look of this bass. They like this one too, but with the pick guard, everybody instantly knows that this is a Hofner. I started out with it was a pretty good violin bass. It was a Rogue, and it had bigger machine heads, but it was it was pretty close, and I modified a bit of it, but it was still a Rogue. It was okay, and it served me really well for years. And then a friend of mine bought an Epiphone viola bass, they call them. You can play a lot of British Invasion and stuff like that on it, but you can also play a lot of rock on it because that's the way they made it. But it was pretty close. But I've seen those basses anywhere from 300 to 900. So if you're going to pay that much, you might as well get something that looks more like a Hofner. I have other videos out there where it's on the Rickenbacker replica bass. That saved me a lot of money, and that bass just plays unbelievable. It's never failed me. I'm sure that one day I could afford all the. I do have a real Rickenbacker bass, but I don't want to paint that up. So I'm sure that I could afford a real German Hofner, but they're just so expensive. I mean, they're about 25 US, and in Canadian money, that's a lot of money. And these basses are pretty fragile. I mean, you could step on this thing and it would just. So I'm very happy with these basses, and I don't see a lot of tutorials about the Icon bass, which people claim to call it they call it the ignition, but they're not really telling you that it's the same bass, because I measured it and it's a completely different bass. Although that the ignition bass that's made in Indonesia, they are a good bass because I played them, but I'm not that big of a guy, and I suspect that they probably made it for so bigger guys can play that, which is great because these are really small basses. These are 3/4 scales, but nothing sounds like a Hofner bass really, and in the tribute band that I play on the Rickenbacker replica and on these basses, they're all strung with flat wounds. So I haven't played on round wound strings for years, and I don't think that these basses, when you want to play British Invasion and that old stuff, they don't sound great with the round wound strings. I think it sounds so much better with these basses strings because you get that nice boom boom like the Motown that you want, and these basses have incredible tone, and the sustain on them are amazing. And if you're playing 2 nights or whatever you're playing, and there's hours going on, these basses are a lot easier on your shoulder, and they hardly weigh anything. And I know the guitar players that pick up my bass, they like to play this because it's so easy to play, and it's only a 3/4 scale bass. But if you can get yourself a hold of a Icon bass that's made in China, that's a Hofner, you got a treasure, because you know, I would never sell this bass because it sounds so good, and I'm one of those kind of guys that like to prove that you know, like, you can make a $369 bass sound amazing, you know. But if you're one of these people that have to have the name brand, you best not watch this video, because you're probably not going to like what I have to say. But if you want to do it on more of a economical, budgeted way, you can certainly do this, because if you're going to tour, you know, around the world or wherever you're going to go, you know, to take these basses, I mean, I wouldn't want it to happen, but if this bass ever got damaged, I could probably live with it, because it's not my favorite bass, but it's a great bass that I need for the show. If the real one got damaged, man, that would be just, you know, would be so devastating. But this bass here, even if it's only $369, I would be a lot more upset if it got damaged than this bass, because that bass has the fastest neck on it. I mean it. This bass, it doesn't even look like it has a fat neck, but it's a little bit fatter. I don't have problems with it, but this one here, you could play it all day, all night. It is just so comfortable, and it sounds great. And I've never put actually any money into it for repairs. It's just never failed me. So if you're Hofner lovers out there, that's what you want to do. And a lot of people out there that like real West Germany made Hofners, they're going to tell you that these don't sound anything like Hofners. But I've never had anybody tell me that no, it doesn't sound like a Hofner, or, you know, not even close. So highly recommend it. Have a great day, guys. So we're just going to show you a little bit more of the bass. Here it goes.